And he don't have the balls he was born with. Believe me, he won't say a fucking word. When he sees the power, John Gotti, Frankie the Chico, Sammy the Bull, me, meaning Joe Piney, he's not going to say a word. He'll give Paul up in 2 minutes.
And let's talk about some people from the administration of the Bonnano family. Obviously, the boss from around in the 70s, although he was incarcerated for a lot of it, was Philip Rusty Rastelli. I think he was only free for about 3 years of his whole entire reign. Was there much talk on the street about Rastelli? Because I assume you didn't meet him.
No, I never met him, but they weren't answering to him anymore. And there was, one plot after the other for who was going to take over. There was a crew of captains, Big Trini, Philly Lucky, Sonny Red. They were plotting to take over the family, and in a violent way. On the other side, there was
Sonny Black,
Sonny Black,
Joe Massino.
Joe Massino he was friendly with John Gotti. He told John Gotti about this whole plot. John Gotti went to our family, the Gambinos, told about the plot, and asked if we could help him. They didn't want to get involved, the Gambinos didn't want to get involved in the war itself, which was going to happen, but there was a major hit that was going to take place. They were going to kill Sonny Red, Philly Lucky, and Trini. They were going to use this guy from Canada to come in, and Joe Massino was going to be on the hit. And our part would be, when I say our part, I had no part in it, but the Gambino family.
Clear up, right?
Huh?
The cleanup, disposing of the bodies.
The cleanup, take the bodies, bury the bodies. That was Johnny Koenig and his brother, Charlie Koenig. They got rid of the bodies, and that was our part. And that's why when John took over, he thought he had a sweetheart friendship with Joe Massino. Joe Massino did become the boss. And but to John's surprise, later on, when we took over, Joe Massino was caught on tape saying, this fucking idiot is destroying the mafia, everything he's doing. And this is where he became the boss, and he was flashy and doing all these things. So it seems like, in a way, he did have Joe Massino, but Joe Massino had lost respect for John when he became the boss. And this is how he got caught on tape.
Did you know, I think it was Consigliere for a time, Stefano Stevie Beef Cannone? No?
Stevie Beef the last name don't ring a bell with me, but Stevie Beef, I did hear that. He was what?
He was Consigliere for Rastelli around the time of the Galante hit in '79. But you may not have come across him, so.
No, I don't know him.
That's okay. And what about Nicky Glass's Marangello?
The name I know, didn't know him personally.
Okay, so let's move over to the Luchese crime family. And there's in around, obviously, the early 70s, Carmine Mr. Gribbs Tremonti was the boss for a period of time. Did you know anything about him at all?
No.
And obviously, one of his consiglieres, I think, was Vincenzo Rayo. Did you, again, these kind of old-time guys, so I don't know if you had any knowledge of them at all.
No, even though I am 100 years old.
Yeah, but I think they're older than you.
But they were older than me. No, I don't know too much about him either.
Okay, so then eventually, Anthony Tony Ducks Corallo takes over the Lucchese's, and obviously he then gets put away in the commission case. What do people on the street talk about Tony Ducks? Was he obviously highly respected?
He was highly respected. I went to a serious meeting with him one time. Paul sent me it was the Concrete Club, and he sent me there to talk. And I was an acting captain. When I went into the meeting, there was Tony Ducks, there was Fat Tony, there was some heavyweights, I'm not sure, I don't remember, but with the Colombo family, and I walked in, and I really, literally said to myself, holy shit, they're all bosses. And, you know, Fat Tony made a joke, Sammy, you're a young guy, you're a good-looking guy, why do you want to sit here with all us old farts? Go out with some young broads. And we all left, and he was a great guy, and I had a good relationship with him. But Tony Ducks said something nice too. He said, Sammy, I could see you're a little nervous. We're all bosses here. Paul sent you here. So we're looking at you now as a boss. We know your rank, we know what you are. But don't be reluctant to say what you want to say and talk. You're Paul now. We're looking at you as Paul, as a boss. And that made me feel real comfortable between Fat Tony and Tony Ducks. When I got done with the meeting, what they were doing was putting together all the families, whatever connections we had, whatever unions they were, we would use that power to take over all the high-rise buildings, everything that's 2 million and above. The concrete would go to who we wanted it to go. The concrete that was delivered would be delivered by who we wanted it to be delivered, and they would tax them. I went home and I met with Paul, and he said, how did the meeting go? I said, great. I told him about what Tony said, Fat Tony, and Tony Ducks. He said, they're great guys. But what's your opinion of it? I said, you want my honest opinion? Yes, of course. I said, we're all going to go to jail. It's too big. He says, all right, I'll take you off of this. And I said, Paul, you don't have to take me off. I'm not worried about going to jail. You said you wanted to hear the truth. I'll stay on it, you know, representing. But he said, no, it's not that. I need you in certain areas. And I agree with you. I think we're all going to go to jail. I said, then why don't you just back away from it? He says, I can't. All the families are being represented in this. If I back away, we're the outsider. I'm not going to be the outsider. We have to be part of it. And he says, I know you're not scared. You're not worried. He said, but you know what the other guy told me about this meetings with them? I used somebody before you. I said, what? What did he say? He said this, we're going to make a ton of money. He's a greedy fuck. That's all he thought about. You didn't think about how much money. You thought about the crime and what we're doing and how we're going to get in trouble. You think not just about money, but about the consequences. That's why I sent you. And that's why I want to take you out of that meeting, and I want to put you in different places that I need your honest opinion. Yeah, I like your opinions on things. So that's where I met Tony Ducks. I mean, I always heard of him, but I had a face-up meeting with him at that meeting, the Concrete Club meeting, and eventually I did all get busted on that. I didn't get busted.
Okay, I mean, in one of our former chats, we've discussed obviously Christy Tick, and then obviously Amuso and Gas Pipe. So we won't cover them today. But did you know Tony Ducks's underboss, Tom Mick Santoro? He got convicted on the commission case with him.
I knew of him. I didn't know him personally, no.
Okay. So finally, to a family you're very familiar with, obviously the Gambinos. Obviously, through your previous videos and our discussions, you've discussed people like Neil Dellacroce and Frankie Lucchese and obviously John Gotti. But if we could touch on a couple of names. So Joe N Gallo, who's obviously a long-time consigliere for Gambino, Castellano, and Gotti for a time. What was your thoughts on Joe N Gallo?
When we plotted to kill Paul, he knew the plot. He did have a long-time relationship with the whole Gambino family. He went along with it, but he didn't want to be part of it. He said, when yous win, I'll come out and help run the family. We thought that he was Paul's true betrayer. He had no reason to go against Paul, and he wanted to sit on the sidelines. If we lose, he looks good to Paul. If Paul loses, he looks good to us. He was a fence rider and the true betrayer of Paul. So we put him on the side. After the hit was taking place with Paul, I was made the acting gunzier with him. When he got arrested in 1987 or 88, we took him down and I became the official gunzier. Joe Piney was in the case with him. He went away as well.
I read an interesting story about, we're going to talk about Piney in a minute, that when Piney, I think, approached Gallo and told him about the plot, and I think you guys all said, well, do you think Gallo will say anything? And Piney said, I'll fucking kill him, basically, if he does.
Absolutely. And he said, if he would say anything, I would kill him. And he don't have the balls he was born with. Believe me, he won't say a fucking word. When he sees the power, John Gotti, Frankie the Chico, Sammy the Bull, me, meaning Joe Piney, he's not going to say a word. He'll give Paul up in 2 minutes. He knows that this is the power. He would be against too much power. And he's a smart guy. He goes with the win. He goes with the winning side. So nobody really had a tremendous respect for him. He's not somebody who took a position. All right, let's do this. If you want to stay out, say, I'm out. I'll never say you came here, I'm out. And I'm not going to support you in any way, shape, or form, like Neil did. That's a fucking man. You don't have to join us. He didn't. But Joe Gallo joined right away. It's just what Joe Piney said. He had no balls.
So talking about Piney, what you sound like you kind of respected Piney a bit. What was Joe Piney like as a guy?
Good guy. Really a good guy. He was arrested originally with the French connection, where the French brought in heroin into the country. They brought it in not only into the country, he was connected with that whole thing. The heroin came from Italy. Italy said the easiest way to get it in is the French. The French people have connections in Canada. They're all French. So they don't bother them. The planes could go in and out. They don't have any problems. So the French connection was heroin going from Italy to France, from the French underground, smuggling it into Canada. From Canada, it was smuggled into the United States. It went a whole different route. It was a very ingenious plot. But I guess they all got busted eventually anyway. Yeah, Joe Piney was part of that. All the old timers loved him. So his support for us would be, we didn't need him with a crew that would be a tough crew, killers, and we needed him to smooth after the hit is done, smooth all of the old timers down. Calm down, no problem. I'm there, I got this. That's what we needed him for.
Yeah.
He was very well liked.
Did he ever talk about his older brother who died many years before, Stephen Armone, who was a big power player and obviously in the late 50s and was involved in the Anastasia plot? Did he ever talk about his brother Stephen at all?
Not to me, no.
No. Okay, just curious.